Hey everyone, Alan Reynolds again, and today we're going to do a little interview with some finance topics. So we've got John Hylton with Pinnacle Bank in Livonia, Georgia. So he's not too far away from us, but we just wanted to take a little bit and talk about some things that might help you all in some different areas thinking about financing in the farm. So John, thanks for being here.
Absolutely, thank
Appreciate
you for having
it.
me.
Absolutely. So I guess maybe let's just start off with, what if somebody wanted to get into poultry and wanted to start a farm? I mean, there could be anything from an average, the average farms are like 4 houses, but some people have 2 or whatever. So probably, I guess, one of the biggest questions would be, how much does it cost down payment to get it going?
So that is one of the biggest questions we get in the financing end of things. Basically, the banks traditionally want 20% into it. You can get away with maybe 15%, but everything has to be really solid. There has to be other things to really back that up, maybe some additional assets, additional liquidity outside, maybe even additional income outside the farm. But traditionally it's 20% down, and that can be done a couple of different ways. We can usually combine maybe cash and maybe land equity. If somebody is giving you land, we see that a lot for generation farmers, where a father may have given his son, or mom and dad have given their son or daughter a portion of land. They can use that land as their equity into it if it gives them enough equity for the 20% down. So there's a couple different ways we can spend that. If you go outside of the traditional bank, the SBA type lending, even they require about 15% down. So going direct through a bank, going 15 to 20% is generally what you're looking at.
Gotcha. Recently we did an interview with a 4-generation farm. We interviewed the father and the son, but the grandfather and the great-grandfather in the 1800s. But even him, his name was Matt had to finance his little farm. Mm-hmm. So that's the things. I guess probably not only just how much to put down, but how long would you finance for? You had mentioned, you and I were talking before we got on camera about some strategies about how long do you want to go, or what's the plan?
Yeah, so when we're dealing with our customers, we basically look at a couple things. We want to find out what their strategy is, so what their long-term goals are. That determines kind of the term of our interest rate. The shorter the term, the lower your interest rate is. So you want to look at, what's your long-term goal? Are you planning on keeping this farm for 10, 15, 20 years? Or are you looking at, getting into a farm, maybe building it up, run it for a couple years, and then turn around and selling it? And so that can dictate what kind of interest rate term you use. Traditionally, on newer farms, you're looking at 15 to 20 years is your amortization or your payment, how we base our payments. And we basically utilize that because we know that the integrators are going to require you to do upgrades at some point. And so you want to build some equity into that. Your SBA lending, sometimes they'll go out 25, 30 years. The negative to that we've seen is you don't build up enough equity quickly enough. And so if you need to do some upgrades in 5 to 7 years, you don't have the equity in the farm to really do that.
Sure.
And so on a 15 to 20 year amortization or payment schedule, that allows you to build that equity and then turn around and do the upgrades that you need to and still be able to finance that through the bank.
I got a question we hadn't talked about was, so if somebody's trying to decide, am I going to do a 5-year and get in and maybe play with this, or am I dedicated for the long haul? I guess at what point would you need to be committed to make some money on this? I know it, and I know that it's also based on how many flocks that an integrator will promise you. And with some of the issues we've been having lately, it's like I've been having growers go, my budget's based on a 6-flock year, and I've only been getting 4 flocks. I can't imagine.
Yeah, that's the scariest thing. That if I was in a grower standpoint and I just invested $1 million or $2 million into a farm, that's kind of what I would be worried about too. And it worries the bank as well. We're concerned about that. And this is where I think having a relationship with a bank is important. And knowing that you have that bank that's going to back you up is important, because we've been in poultry for decades, and we know that there's hills and valleys along that process. And so if you get into a situation where your integrator has cut you back from, say, 6 flocks
Sure.
or 4 flocks, the bank can work with you, do an extension, and then push your payment out, 6 months or so to give you time to absorb that and maybe get back on a normal schedule again. And so there's strategies that we can use to help that integrator. I tell my folks all the time, the last thing we want is your farm. We want, John, exactly. John's job is based on you being successful as a farmer and you paying that loan off. If you're not successful, John's not successful, and the bank's not successful. So we want you to be successful, and we know that we have to be a partner with you in that role. So yeah, there are definitely some issues, and today with the virus going around and that kind of stuff, those are some things that we have to be working closely with our farmers on to make sure that we know what's going on and we can be there to help them.
I think whether you're buying a farm or buying any type of service or consumer product, relationship, I think we kind of look for maybe the best deal, but when you got this much at stake, I think, it seems to me that a relationship is really important, because it could overcome, maybe you saved a few points on interest, but you got a good, strong relationship with somebody who would work with you, because who knows, you get a virus come through, or, how that's happened. But, I like this little section because we may have people who want to look at maybe going into or maybe financing a new farm, but kind of shifting gears into most of the people who watch this on YouTube and the hundreds of others who get our email this video already have a farm.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tyson's going to say, you got to upgrade.
Yeah.
I mean, here's some things that you got a 20-year-old farm and we want the computers or whatever. So tell me about refinancing. What does that look like? How do you get it? What do you do?
Again, that goes back to having equity in your farm.
Yeah.
If you've got good equity in your farm, it's a normal thing that we do. We're constantly refinancing farms for upgrade purposes to help them meet the requirements of the integrators. And we see that all the time. The integrator comes to the farmer and says, look, to get on this contract, you need to do these upgrades. And so basically, if you have the equity in your farm, the integrator comes to you and says, here's the list of upgrades that we're requiring. We take that into consideration. Generally, we can do that without any additional cash from the borrower, from the poultry farmer, and we just roll that into a new loan. We talked earlier about rates. The rate environment is great right now. You won't pick a better time to refinance your farm than today. Rates are at all-time low. And we don't see them moving anywhere in the near future. We expect them to be around this rate environment, this low rate environment, for a year and a half. It's based on how the economy's doing, and it's going to take a while for us to get back to where we were. And so we expect rates to remain pretty low for the next foreseeable future, next year and a half or so. And so if you are in that predicament where your integrator's coming to you wanting some upgrades, if you reach out to your local bank, they would understand that, at least Pinnacle would, and would work with you on those upgrades and getting that refinanced. And like I said, it's not a bad time to do that as well.
Yeah. We talked earlier too about how growers are really just struggling in a lot of ways. And so we did a video not too long ago about taxes and just showed them how, you could actually do some upgrades and get tax deductions and, deduct them right off the front end of the year, even if you did it on December 31st. We talked about some of those things. But so if they've got some things to do, it might be a good time to even, I'm kind of in between, but if rates are low right now, and it seems, I don't know how it's going to go, but at least the administration right now is kind of trying to help the farmer in every way it can. So I was curious how rates you think they're going to be, but if you think for the next year and a half, be pretty good. But if you wait too long, you just never know.
Yeah,
things could change in November too.
Exactly. Yeah, the elections will, and we look at that from a finance standpoint too. Elections, carry a lot of weight in this country, and so we're looking to November to see how that's going to fare and what that's going to look like moving forward. But again, for us, and we look at kind of the 10-year treasury, and the 10-year treasury is really flat right now, which means they expect rates to remain low for a foreseeable future. And
Cool.
so we do look at that, and we monitor that all the time, but it could change. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, all we have to do is see an uptick in the economy, and you know, if you get a new president or a new Fed chair, all of that could change.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're in the market for doing upgrades and you're looking for ways to help on the tax side of things, you can maybe lower your interest rate, beef up your depreciation by doing some upgrades to the farm. So there's ways that you can, you know, utilize the time and what we're going through now to
Good.
make that work.
Yeah. If there's any good thing that could come out, maybe that would be.
That's right. That's right.
You know, I believe we've hit, like, if you want to get into poultry farming, what if you're already in it? How can you? One thing I wanted to kind of maybe wrap up with, because you advise financial. That's what you do. So, you know, we're not just in this to grow chickens and make money, but I mean, we got to be thinking about the future too. So, is there anything you would say, you know, what can they do to even maybe think planning ahead on helping themselves financially? I mean, you know, they don't offer 401ks or anything like that, but what's some things that you might would suggest to a grower to kind of be thinking about financially?
That's a great question, and I think that's something that probably most farmers don't think about a lot. You know, they think about, you know, what's happening in that day, or, you know, that month, or this flock, and so they're not really looking at down the road. And so I think that's a great question for any farmer that's in it right now, to look at what their plan is to either transition out of farming, or maybe even transition that farm to one of their children. And so, you know, we have a group that we work with in the bank, Hylton Trust Partners, that can sit down with customers like that, kind of come up with a strategy. And so we encourage farmers to look at that, because, you know, there's always, you know, tax consequences to transitioning, you know, assets. And so and farms carry a lot of weight from a value standpoint. And so you're dealing with sometimes millions of dollars in assets there. And if you don't do it right, Uncle Sam can get a big portion of that. And so we recommend, you know, those farmers that are getting to a point where they're looking at ways of getting out or maybe transitioning, to sit down with one of, you know, you may have another financial partner, but sit down with somebody and talk about that and what are the best ways to transition out of farming. So that's a great question. I think that's something that all farmers should be looking at, because there are no retirement, so-called retirement plans in farming. That is their retirement. So,
and I think I kind of think about it because I think about even for myself. I mean, even if you've got something, you still aren't guaranteed down the road. But I just, you know, sometimes if we don't think, nobody's going to think about it for us.
That's right.
So I encourage growers, you know, take care of the farm. That's how you're going to pay. But, you know, take care of your family too. You need to plan ahead. And sometimes we just kind of procrastinate. You're like, and I can get it. It's like, I'm barely surviving right now. So, you know, you'll get through it. You will make it. So that's what we're here to do, is try to help you in any way we can. So I want to thank John today for coming to spend a little time with us.
Absolutely.
And like I said, John is with Pinnacle Bank in Livonia, Georgia. We'll put his information up because we do have a lot of growers even up in your area.
That's right.
But even if not, I'm sure John wouldn't mind helping through some things. So anyway, again, thank you, John.
Thank you.
And if we can help you in any way, let us know. Thank you.